Welcome, everyone. Now that we are all here, we are about to begin our global read. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Felipe. I'm part of the Charter for Compassion staff. We are super excited to be hosting Pablo de Ors, the author of Biography of Silence. As you see here, this is the book for January 31st. So it's a global read for January. I'm sorry about that. We are so grateful to have Gard Jameson as the facilitator for this global read. Gard is part of the board of trustees and a wonderful friend of Compassion for All. We are live now on Facebook as well. So Gard, Pablo, the floor is yours.
Buenos días, Pablo, mi hermano.
So good morning, Pablo, my brother. I just speak a little bit in Spanish just for asking for food, and that's it. That's all my Spanish, says Gard. But my English is not that good, says Pablo also. So
I just want you to know that this book is really important. I have been giving it to friends, and I want to thank you for writing it, because there are very, very few books like this. In fact, this is the only one I know. So, muchas gracias. I want to open with a quote from a friend of mine, which is that silence is the greatest cathedral in the world. And on the altar of that cathedral is universal peace. Could you speak to that for just a moment? How silence is a great cathedral.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm honored and I'm so grateful for that. So, Biography of Silence is a book that I wrote in 2010, and it was published in 2012 in Spain, in my country. And since then, the editing processes had been multiplied, not only in Spain, but also all around the world, such as US, Germany, France, Italy. And in fact, when I was preparing this meeting, I was able to take all the editions from all the books in all the languages, Spanish, in Latin America, German, in French, Portuguese, and Czech, so many other languages. And so that means that this has had a very commercial success, more than 2,000 readers, but also this is an existential success. So answering to your question, this is an existential success because so many readers had written to me and they had fed up my email telling me that this book has helped them a lot in their life and that it means a change. And in fact, this small book has changed my life. So why is that? Well, basically, because the great challenge for this contemporary world that we live in is silence. And with this idea, I just put it together with what you were mentioning, that this is a cathedral. We're living in a world right now that there is a lot of noise, a lot of diversion, and a lot of external stimuli. And that is why coming back on traveling to our inner side is so important. Our core, our inner side. What we will find is a cathedral. What we will find there, what we will find within is that cathedral. So we need to give in to ourselves and to stop living externally, but also to come back within and to discover that new paradigm, which is this reality. So, Biography of Silence speaks about my own journey within to my own cathedral.
Thank you. I met you in Monterey at Encuentro, and it was a delight to be there with you. And you say in your book that silence is the source of unity. And when we understand unity, then we celebrate diversity. My question is, John Paul II said the most important practice in the church today is Lectio Divina. And as you know, Lectio Divina is divine reading, and is basically is our way of approaching revelation with the heart, mind, body, and soul. But it's an emphasis upon silence in Lectio Divina. That is the end of Lectio Divina. Why has the church resisted really sharing this message? Why has Christianity resisted sharing this message?
Es una pregunta muy bonita, querido Mark.
This is a very nice
También
question,
tengo
dear God.
muy bonito recuerdo
And
del
this
tiempo
is
que pasé
a
en
good
Monterrey,
remembrance that I
en el
had
Encuentro
that
Mundial
the time
de
that I
Valores.
spent in Monterrey on
Me
the
gustaría
Encuentro de
responder a
Valores.
esta pregunta
And I would
en
like
su
to
doble
answer this
vertiente. La
question
primera parte,
in two parts. The
el
first one
silencio como camino
is
hacia la
that
unidad.
silence as a journey to unity.
Esto es muy importante
And this is
porque
very important
efectivamente estamos
because,
rotos por dentro
yes,
y por fuera.
we are broken
Y
inside and
estamos
outside.
divorciados, separados,
We are
fracturados,
separated. We are
y
fractured.
necesitamos buscar
We are
una
divorced.
recomposición, una
And we're
armonía.
just trying to fix it.
Y
We're
eso es
just
lo que
trying to
busca
get that
la
balance and that
práctica de
harmony.
la
So
meditación.
that's the practice of
La práctica de
meditations
meditación
looking for.
no
Our
solamente
practice,
es por
meditation
medio
practice,
del
it is not
silencio
only through
externo,
silence, through
sino
this
por medio del
external silence,
silenciamiento
but also
interno.
through
Y
this inner
este
silencing.
silenciamiento sobre el cual
And
podemos
this
hablar
inner
es
silencing
lo que
that
nos
we can speak
conduce
about is what
justamente a la
leads
experiencia
us
de la unidad.
to the experience of
Y
unity.
solamente cuando lo
And
descubrimos
it is
nosotros
only
en
when we
nosotros
find
mismos,
that for ourselves, within
podemos
ourselves,
irradiarlo
that we
al
can
mundo
irradiate it
de
to
tal
the
modo
world in such a way
que cada vez
that
estemos más unidos, ¿no?
we are
Esto por una
closer
parte, ¿no?
and we are more
Y la segunda parte
united.
de la pregunta,
That's on one
también
hand.
me
And then on
interesa
the
mucho,
second part of the question,
porque
I'm also
evidentemente
interested because
la Iglesia
evidently
católica, el
Catholic
cristianismo en general,
Church,
se ha
Christianity
construido
in general,
sobre la
has been
palabra, sobre el
created
logos.
over the world, over the
Y
logos.
yo suelo decir en los retiros que
And
imparto en Amigos del Desierto, que es una
I
asociación
share with
que
the
fundé
Amigos del
justamente hace
Desierto.
10
This is
años
an association
a
that I
propósito de
created
hacer el
a
silencio de todos los
few years
lectores que nos
ago
pedían.
for all
Yo suelo
our
decir
readers.
que
And
el
so
encuentro
I
con el
tended to
misterio
tell
del yo,
them that the
el
meeting with
misterio del
this
ser,
mystery of God,
como
with the
podemos
mystery of the
formularlo
self,
laica,
as we
es
can
por
just
medio
mention it,
de
is
tres
through
por tres medios
through
fundamentalmente. Por el medio de la
three
naturaleza,
means: through nature,
contemplando un paisaje
contemplating, let's say, the
desde lo alto de la
landscape
montaña,
from
contemplando
the
el
hill, from the
océano
mountain,
inmenso,
or
a la
just
bóveda
looking at the
celeste,
ocean,
el ser
or
humano
looking
se
to the
sobrecoge y
sky,
piensa
to the
en lo
universe, and
trascendente,
then
en
you
el
start
misterio de la
thinking
vida,
on the transcendental,
pero
on the
también por medio
mysteries
de
of
la
life.
cultura,
But
de la
also
palabra,
it can be done
no
through
solamente
culture,
por medio de la
through the
imagen, de la
word, through the
naturaleza,
spoken
sino por
word,
medio de la
not only
cultura, de
through
la
the
palabra.
images, but also through the culture and
Este
the
es
words.
una
So
segunda
this is
vía,
a
que es la vía que
second
transitan
mean,
fundamentalmente
and
los
basically
monoteísmos, el cristianismo, el
monotheist
judaísmo y el
and
islam,
Christianism, Judaism, and
pero hay una
Islam
tercera vía
follow. But there is another third
que
line,
ha sido
pathway
explorada
that
también por el
has been
cristianismo,
explored
pero
also through
no
Christianism, but
tanto
not that
como la
far
vía de la palabra,
as
y
the
es
word
justamente la vía del
itself.
silencio.
And that is the pathway of silence.
Que yo suelo decir que el silencio es la
I
otra
tend
cara
to
de la
say that
palabra.
silence is the other
¿En qué
face
se
of the
expresa?
word.
La lectio divina que propone
So
el
the
Papa,
lectio divina
que se
that the
propone
Pope
en la tradición
proposes,
cristiana,
and that it's proposed
no
also
es
through
solamente palabra,
Christianity,
o no debería
it's
ser
not only the
solamente palabra. Es
word.
palabra
It shouldn't be
en
the
forma
word
del silencio.
by itself, but it is the
Es
word
decir, que esas
in
palabras
depth of that
nos
silence. That
tendrían que
means
conducir
that
a
those
silenciarnos, a callar,
words lead us
a
to
escuchar
silence our
la
inner
palabra del
self,
Espíritu.
just to listen the
Es decir,
word of the
estos
Spirit.
tres
So
medios,
these
que
three
son la
means:
naturaleza, la
nature,
cultura, la palabra y el
culture, the
silencio,
word, and
podríamos
silence, we can say
engancharlos
that we
a las
can
tres
put them
imágenes
all together through
las
these
tres
three
personas
images, through the
de la Trinidad
Trinity
en la visión
in
cristiana.
the
La naturaleza es la
Christian
vida del
vision.
Padre,
Nature is
la
the
cultura o
life
la
of the
palabra es la
Father,
vida del Hijo,
the
el Hijo es la
culture
palabra,
of the world is
y
the
el
Son,
silencio es la vida del
and the
Espíritu.
silence is the
Es
Spirit.
decir, que yo lo que estoy proponiendo
So what I'm proposing
es
here
cómo,
is that
cómo sin el
how
silencio
how
la
without
palabra se convierte en
silence,
palabrería,
the word then turns
es
just
decir,
in gossip.
¿no?
Then
Cómo
this
ha
is
llegado
this
también al cristianismo
bad word.
la
And
era
then
del
how
silencio,
can
la
the
era del Espíritu
Christianity,
Santo.
how is it that they
No sé si me
have
explico.
reached this silence era?
Thank you. And my teacher, Thomas Keating, echoes Rumi when he says that silence is God's primary language. And if silence is God's primary language, then we are each obligated to learn another language. And I think the brilliance of your book is that you say it's not an easy language to learn, and that it takes time, and that in the beginning, it's a little boring. But as we progress, we begin to experience the depth of God's presence within us.
Sí.
Could you speak about why God might have chosen silence as his primary language?
Qué gran pregunta.
Great
Esta
question,
pregunta
says
nunca me la habían
Pablo.
formulado. Me han formulado muchas preguntas.
Never
¿Por
that
qué
question has been asked.
Dios
Why?
escogió el
Why is
silencio
it that God
como su primera,
chose
su primer lenguaje,
silence as its prime language?
Quizá porque el silencio
And
es
maybe it
lo
is because
suficientemente amplio,
silence is wide
lo
enough,
suficientemente
maybe because
acogedor para
silence
que quepa la humanidad entera y quepa el universo entero.
may include all the humanity as well as all the
Es
universe.
decir, yo lo que voy descubriendo de manera
So,
muy
what
modesta
I've been discovering,
y en una línea
moderately
parecida
speaking,
afín
and this
o
is in
análoga a la
a
de Thomas Keating,
tendency
que es un grandísimo maestro
similar to
que yo
Thomas
respeto
Keeping, which is a
muchísimo,
great master that I
yo lo que
respect.
descubro es que
What I
no es que
discover
Dios
is
escoja el
that
silencio
it is
como
not that
lenguaje,
God
sino que
chooses
el
silence
silencio
as its
es uno de
language,
los
but
nombres de Dios.
silence is one of the names of God.
Quiero decir con esto
So what I want to say
que yo
here
lo que
is that
descubro
what I
es
discover
que
is
el silencio no es que sea un lenguaje,
silence
sino
is not a
el
language as
lenguaje
such, but the
más
language itself,
inmediato
the most immediate
para contactar
language.
con Dios.
So we can
Porque
contact
no es
God
por
is
medio de una
silence, because it
imagen,
is
la
not through an
naturaleza,
image
o por
or through
medio de una
nature or
palabra,
through a
la Sagrada
word,
Escritura,
that,
sino directamente.
but it is
Directamente.
direct, a
Es
contact
verdad
direct. Silence gives us
que
that
esa conexión
contact.
tan directa
That direct connection is
tiene sus
given through silence,
dificultades, ¿no?
and
O
of
sea,
course
¿y cuál es la principal
that
dificultad? Pues la
connection
principal
has its own
dificultad es el ego,
difficulties, and
¿no? Es
that one
decir,
of
que
these great
nosotros
difficulties is
pues nos
the ego,
autoafirmamos
the self,
y de alguna
because we can
manera
affirm, and in
no
a certain
dejamos que
way
resuene
we
la
don't
voz
make
del
it
alma, la voz de lo
resonate
profundo,
the
la voz de
voice
Dios,
of
¿no? Y por
of
eso
God.
es un aprendizaje.
So
Por
that's
eso
why
es
it's
un
a learning
entrenamiento.
process. So
Por
that's
eso
why
yo
you need to be
escribí,
trained
después
to
de
that.
5 años
So that's
de
why
silenciarme
after
mañana
5
y tarde
years
todos los
of
días,
silencing
pues
myself
mi modesta
on a daily
experiencia
basis,
de esta
based on my
práctica,
experience of
que
this
es una
practice, that's why
práctica
I wrote this book.
en la
And
que de
this is a
alguna forma
practice
estás obligado,
in a
estás
way you are
invitado
forced or you are invited
a trascender
to
tu inquietud corporal, primera cosa,
your
tu
inner
distracción
awareness,
mental,
your
segunda cosa,
mental
y
distraction,
tus
your
sombras,
body
¿no? Es
distraction,
decir,
as well
todo lo
as
que
your
está
shadows.
dentro
That
de
is to
uno
say,
sin
whatever is
reconciliar
within yourself
y que
without
evidentemente
being
en la
recognized. And
meditación
of course, through
emerge precisamente
meditation,
para ser
it
sanado,
pop-ups
para ser
and
purificado,
it
¿no?
emerges
Pero
to
una
be
vez
healed. But once
que empiezas a transitar, porque
once
siempre te
that you
acompaña,
start
pero empiezas a
through this
transitar
journey,
esa
once
inquietud
that you
corporal,
start
esa
walking
distracción mental
and
y
having all
ese
this
territorio
body
sombrío que pertenece al
easiness
ser humano, el inconsciente,
and that starts
entras
being
o vas
shown in
entrando
the
poco a poco
unconsciousness, you start
en lo que podemos llamar en la
entering little
tradición
by little
cristiana
to
el
what we can
recogimiento,
call this
¿no? O la oración de quietud.
recovering.
Y si quieres sobre eso podemos hablar, qué es lo que pasa ahí, ¿no?
So we can speak about,
porque la gente piensa que meditar es solamente
because
luchar
sometimes
contra el cuerpo y
people
contra la mente,
think that it is to
pero
fight
es mucho
against
más
the
que eso,
body
claro.
or the mind, but it goes beyond that.
Gracias. So, in probably the most important sermon of Jesus, the beginning of the sermon is the Beatitudes. And the first and most important of the Beatitudes is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, the humble, for theirs is the treasures of the kingdom." Can you speak to how poverty of spirit, humility is related to silence, and why silence is so important if we seek the treasures of the kingdom?
Sí, yo suelo decir que
Yes,
cuando me preguntan
I
cuáles
tend to
son
say
las
that whenever
condiciones
I've been
para
asked
poder
about
empezar
what
el
are the
camino
conditions, so
espiritual
we can
en
start
serio
with this
y con
spiritual
rigor,
journey in
para
a
poder
serious
empezar
way,
con la
and to
práctica de
follow
la
it
meditación,
and
quiero
to
decir
start
que
with
hay
the
dos
meditation
condiciones
practice,
que
I
son,
can say that there are two
primera,
conditions.
la
The first one
constancia,
is to be constant. That is to say, that has to be a practice, a daily practice, no? It has to be little by little, or every day just a little bit. And then the second condition, besides being constant, you need to be humble. Humble comes from humus, that is the earth, and it has the same root as humor in Spanish. That is mood. This searcher, it's the person that might laugh about themselves and that doesn't take so serious all the things. And also that's the same root as for the word humanity. So humbles without earth, there's no humanity. So when you meditate, when you are able to achieve that, the meditator reaches the earth. So then what does humility means? Well, you need to speak with your truth, your inner truth, as Teresa de Ávila used to say, but it is also the capacity to learn. I think that the great drama of the Western countries is that we have lost this tendency of learning and teachers, because we all want to be sons, but we don't want to assume the responsibility of the authority as parents, for example. So, as there is no this relationship between father and son, teacher and student, then we lose the condition for this spiritual growth, and that is willing to learn, and that is humble. And also the poverty of humility, I just put that as a starting point and also as the ending point. That is to say that the more you progress in the spiritual path, then you see yourself little and little. But this is not something that hurts you. But this is something beautiful. This feeling small, it's very beautiful because you can see that the spirit is being expressed within yourself, within your greatness, within yourself. So this is also related with this poverty that I'm speaking about. Poverty is also the source of richness, of wealth. That's the message that we are giving here. So it is not about material poverty in the external world. No, but I'm speaking about this poverty in the heart, the capacity of being open, the capacity of not feeling attached, to be detached, not to attach to the things, to have this trust. So at the end, I do believe that meditation is a discovery of your own poverty, but that discovery, as a paradox, that discovery also reflects your own power. We are more powerful the more we just set aside, the more that we just not highlight ourselves, the more that we just leave the spirit to be there expressing through us. So that's the mystery, and that's what we need to discover as meditators.
In my religion class the other night, I asked my students, what does the heart do? And they said, it pumps blood. But in all of the traditions, we're told that the heart is the cave within which the divine dwells. It is that sacred cathedral within which we experience the presence of the divine. Could you speak to why the heart is such an important part of the first commandment and of all traditions?
Claro que sí. Muy bonito, porque
sure, that's great, because what I'm discovering here, I'm 60 years old, and I've been 34 as a priest, and 20 as meditator, no, and on a daily basis, morning and evenings. And now I'm finding that the path of meditation It is a very
a la vía de
proximate
la
path
devoción.
to the path of devotion.
Es decir, que
So that
el
is to
gran
say that
maestro de
the
oración,
great
el gran
master
maestro de
of
oración
prayers
es
is this
es
one.
el
This is
librito del
my.
peregrino ruso,
This is a loop of the
que
a book of
seguramente
the
mucha gente
Russian
conocerá, Relatos del peregrino
pilgrimage.
ruso,
This is this. You may
que
know about
habla
this book
precisamente de la
that
oración
speaks
del
about
corazón,
the
¿no?
prayer of the
De
heart,
cómo la recitación
on how
de una
the prayer,
ejaculatoria,
the
de un
repetition of a
mantra, de una
prayer,
palabra
of a
sagrada,
mantra, of a sacred
a él
word,
le lleva, le lleva al descubrimiento
gives this the
del
discovery
cuerpo,
of the
del
body,
corazón, ¿no? Y que ese
of the heart,
descubrimiento
and that
él
discovery,
acompasa las palabras a su
he
respiración y
puts
luego
together
primero a su
the
caminar,
words
luego a
with
su
its
respiración y luego a los
breathing, and
latidos de
then
su
the
corazón,
walking,
¿no?
and then
Y ese descubrimiento de
the
ser el
heartbeats.
cuerpo
So this is
le
a
lleva al
discovery
descubrimiento
of
del
being
universo como
being
cuerpo.
that body, and that that body
Como cuerpo,
discovers
como
the universe as
organismo
a
vivo.
body and as a live organism.
Que nos damos cuenta de que el universo está
And that
vivo
allows us to find out that the universe is alive
si nos damos cuenta de que nosotros
if we
estamos
realize
vivos.
that we are alive.
Y realmente
And
la conexión
in reality,
con la
the
vida,
connection that
desde el punto de vista
is there with
biológico, es
life
el
from this
ritmo
biological point of view. It's
cardiorrespiratorio, es
the
decir,
rhythm of
la
the
atención a la
heart.
respiración
That
y
is
al
to say,
corazón,
the
¿no?
attention to the breathing
En la
and to the
tradición
heartbeat.
judio-cristiana,
In the
el corazón
Judaism and
es el
Christianism
centro
tradition,
del
the
ser humano,
heart
no es simplemente
represents
lo
the center
sentimental,
of the human
como
being,
muchas
not
veces
only
se
as a
suele entender,
sentimental
¿no? Sino que es
perspective,
el centro
but also is the core
afectivo
or
y
is the
volutivo
affective center
de la voluntad y de los
of the
afectos
will,
del ser
as
humano.
well as
Y de alguna
on
manera, cuando se
all the
dice
things that the
andar desde
human
el
cares,
corazón o
and
vivir
also
desde el
speaking from the
corazón,
heart or
se está
living from the
diciendo vivir
heart.
desde lo
No,
más
when you are
profundo,
saying
desde el
that,
centro.
you are saying that you are living that from the
Y,
in depth, so that you are living that from
y a
that
mí lo que me
experience, from that
entusiasma
level of experience.
de la
So what
meditación
makes me
cristiana
enthusiastic about this
es que tiene
Christianism
una esta
meditation is that
temperatura
it has this
cálida
temperature. It is warm. It's
y trasciende lo
that
sentimental,
transcends
pero
the
lo incluye.
sentimental aspect, but also it includes that aspect.
Y, y hace que la práctica
And it makes
meditativa o
the
silenciosa de
meditative
los
practice or the
cristianos
silence practice of
no sea,
Christians
al menos esa es mi
then
experiencia,
doesn't turn, or at
tan
least this is
seca
my experience,
o
doesn't
tan árida,
turn
a pesar de
so
que la metáfora
cold,
del desierto está ahí
despite
detrás, ¿no?
the metaphor of the desert
Como
is there,
otras,
as
como en otras tradiciones de
in
sabiduría,
other
como el budismo u
traditions,
otras, ¿no?
such as Buddhism and others,
Donde parece que se
where
subraya
it seems
más
that it underlines
la dimensión del vacío, ¿no? Que no la
this
dimensión,
dimension
digamos,
of
afectiva,
vacuum,
en el
but not
sentido
this
más
affective
amplio de la palabra,
sensation
¿no? Más amorosa sería la palabra
in the
adecuada.
word itself.
Y eso es lo que representa
So
el corazón,
that
¿no?
what's represent the heart.
A mí lo que me gusta
So
de la atención
what I
al
like
corazón
about this
en la
attention or this
meditación
awareness to the heart within
es
meditation
que
while you are
el corazón
meditating
tiene un ritmo.
is that the heart has its rhythm in
Y ese
itself.
ritmo
And
de
that
la vida, ese ritmo
rhythm,
de la
that's the
energía,
rhythm
¿no?
of life, that's the rhythm of energy.
Sin ese ritmo,
That without that rhythm,
no entenderíamos bien el
we won't be
misterio
able to understand
del ser, el
exactly
misterio
that
de Dios,
mystery of the
que
self,
es
of the mystery of God, which is
la dinamis del espíritu, ¿no?
these dynamics of the spirit.
So we're living in a very difficult world right now, and a lot of us have had our hearts broken by the events of the world. Can you speak to how silence and meditation are the grand physician that heals a broken heart, and why a broken heart is not necessarily a bad thing?
Sí.
Yes, of course.
O sea, el mundo está lleno de sufrimiento.
The world around, the world is suffering a lot, without doubt.
Pero nosotros,
but we,
quienes practicamos la meditación,
whoever practices meditation in whatever tradition you follow, we know
que es
based on our experience that it is possible. It is possible to release that suffering. That is to say,
una paz
it is possible to have this unperturbed peace. And this is not an utopia. We can move forward, we can grow, we can evolve towards this inner peace. That's the only solid, basic foundation of this external peace.
en los corazones humanos,
whereas there is no
estaremos
peace
permanentemente
within the
amenazados de
human
guerra
hearts, we
en
will
el
be
exterior.
threatened
¿Vale?
externally
Entonces, que si
with
todos los
several wars.
corazones
As long as
estuviesen en
all the
paz,
hearts
sencillamente
are
no podría haber guerra,
living within this inner peace, there won't
absurdo,
be any wars externally.
Es decir, que meditamos o tenemos un camino espiritual
We meditate or we follow any
que se
spiritual
puede
path
verificar.
that can be
Se puede
verified.
verificar. Esto es muy importante, ¿no?
This is very
Es igual que
important.
si tú vas a un gimnasio y
Just
tienes
as
un
if you go
entrenador,
to the gym and
tú
you
al
have
cabo
a
de un
coach,
mes
a
de trabajo
trainer,
todos los
by
días,
the end
tienes
of the
que
month, if
verificar
you
que tu
work
cuerpo
on a
está
daily
más
basis,
tonificado,
you can check
está
that your
mejor.
body is fitted and
También si meditas en una
it's
tradición,
improved.
con un
So if you
maestro, con una
meditate
escuela,
following a
tienes que
master,
poder
following a
verificar
school,
que
you need to
tienes
be
más
able
paz,
to
que tienes
verify
menos
also that
sufrimiento, menos
there's
tortura
more
mental.
inner peace and there's less mental
Y en
torture
ese sentido,
within yourself.
esta
So in that
propuesta,
sense, this
que es
proposal,
en apariencia muy modesta, siéntate en silencio y en
apparently
quietud,
it
y
is
está,
very modest, you just need
es
to sit down
enormemente
and remain in
transformadora.
silence. It is
Es
totally
decir,
transformative.
precisamente
And that is
esta
why
modestia es lo que lo hace
this
tan poderoso,
modesty makes it really
porque
powerful,
en el silencio
because
no
within
entra
silence,
el ego.
there's no ego,
Es decir,
there's no
en la
self.
palabra y en la acción,
In the word and in
siempre
the
o casi
action,
siempre entra el ego.
almost
Yo
always
puedo decir,
ego,
yo hablo
the
mejor que
self
tú,
starts there, because I can
actúas
say I
mejor que
speak
yo,
better than you
pero
act
en el silencio yo
better
no puedo
than me.
decir,
But
me
within
callo mejor
silence,
que tú.
within the silence, I cannot say
Esto no es
I'm
posible.
totally silenced better than you. That's not
Quiere decir que el
possible.
silencio
So that means that silence
estructuralmente humilde.
is
Y esto es lo que
structurally
hace
humble,
que sea
and that
tan
makes
poderoso y
silence
tan transformador,
so
¿no?
powerful and so transformative.
¿A dónde conduce?
So
¿Por
where
qué
does
es tan
that lead us?
transformador?
Or why is it that silence
Porque
is
nos
such
conduce a nuestra verdadera
transformative?
identidad.
Because that leads us to our
El
own
problema
identity.
radical,
Our own identity,
del
yes.
ser humano es
The main
quiénes somos,
problem of human beings is
quién
to
soy yo.
wonder who we are, who am I?
Y el silencio nos va
And then
conduciendo de
silence
forma no
guides us
conceptual,
in a
sino
non-conceptual
experiencial,
manner, but based on our experience,
a responder a esta
to
cuestión, o
respond
mejor
that
dicho, a
that question.
convivir
Or rather
serena y
than that,
alegremente con ella.
to
Porque
experience
cuando
it and to
convivimos
share
con la
it
pregunta, con serenidad,
calmly. When we face the question
empezamos a
in
responderla
calm, we start
existencialmente.
answering
Esto
it
es
from
muy,
this
muy hermoso.
existential path. So
Y
this is
por
very
eso digo
beautiful.
que no todo
And
termina
that's why I'm saying
luchando
that
con la
not
sombra y con las
everything
inquietudes y
ends
con las
fighting with these
distracciones,
shadows and
sino que
with
hay
these
un
concerns and
territorio,
distractions, because I
¿no?,
can say
en la meditación
that
de
there is
convivencia,
a piece of
en la
land
pregunta.
in the
El
meditation
cristianismo,
where
el
you
cristianismo
get
es quién
into,
dice
you
la
reach
gente que es
this
el Hijo del
peace
Hombre, ¿no?
within.
¿Quién
And in
dices tú
Christianity, we
que
have
es
that.
Cristo,
Who
¿no?
is it that you say
¿Quién
it's
dices tú
Christ?
que es el
Who
yo
is
profundo, el yo con mayúscula,
that
¿no?
is that
Esta es la cuestión.
inner self? And that's the question.
Beautiful. So in that same Sermon on the Mount, Jesus spoke about, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted, and shall discover compassion. Can you speak about how meditation and silence are so important to opening our hearts to the suffering of others and to the experience of compassion for that suffering?
Uh-huh. Sí. Me viene a la cabeza y al corazón.
It calls my attention, and also it comes to my mind and to my heart. One question,
hice en cierta ocasión a un
one
maestro
question that
zen,
I
porque
did
yo
in a
antes
certain period to a Zen master, because
fundar
there was
Amigos
a
del
time
Desierto
that
y de enseñar
before
la
founding
contemplación
the Amigos
cristiana,
del
estuve unos
Desierto and
años
before
estudiando
teaching
zen
this, I was
distintos
studying
maestros.
Zen with different masters.
Y entonces él me dijo en cierta ocasión
So at
algo
that time,
que es muy iluminador, ¿no?
he told me
Él
something
decía,
that
si
gave
una
me this
mano
light. He
tiene una
said,
herida,
if one hand has
la otra
a
mano
wound,
de
the
manera
other hand
espontánea va a ayudarla
spontaneously will
y le
help
da
it
calor y
and will
ayuda,
give heat and
y a nadie
support.
en su sano juicio
And
se
no
le puede
one
decir, oye mano,
will
qué
say,
buena eres, qué
hand, you are
virtuosa,
so good and you are
que has
so
ayudado a la otra.
virtuous that you
No
have
es
helped the
cuestión de
other.
virtud
It
ni
is
de
not a
solidaridad,
matter of solidarity,
sino que
but
lo hace
you
espontáneamente
do it
porque ambas manos
spontaneously because both
se saben
hands
un solo cuerpo.
know that they are one body.
Esto que pasa en el
So
cuerpo
what happens
biológico
here
pasa
in the
también en el
biological
cuerpo
body
social.
also happens in
Si
the
tú, por
social
ejemplo,
body.
ves a tu hijo
If you, for example,
tirado
if
en
you
la
see that
carretera,
your son
malherido,
is
tú
in the
corres a
road
ayudarle y a
injured, you run and
socorrerle,
you help him
y
to
nadie
give
en su sano
the aid that
juicio
is needed, and no one
te
else
diría
will
qué
tell
padre
you
o qué madre
what a
tan
good
virtuoso y
mother or
tan
what a good
solidario
father you
y
are.
tan
So
bueno
with
eres,
this such great
porque tú dirías,
solidarity and
ostras,
that
que
you
es
are a
mi
good
hijo,
person, but
es mi
even though you
familia,
say that
encima
it is
que
your
soy
son or
yo.
your daughter and
Bueno,
it's
y
part
en
of your
cambio,
family,
si ves a un
and then
desconocido
if you see someone,
tirado en la
an
carretera,
unknown person
malherido, y
in the
no
road
acudes a
injured and you
ayudarle,
don't go there to give
no es porque
support,
tú seas malo,
that is not because you are a bad
no es porque
person
seas una mala persona,
or that is
sino
not
porque no
because you are a mean
sabes
person, because
que esa
it is
persona es de tu
because you don't
familia
know that that person belongs to
y
your
eres tú.
family, and that is that
Entonces, el
person
problema
is you.
no
So
no
the
es tanto un
problem is,
problema
it is not a
de
problem
maldad moral,
of being
sino de
morally
ignorancia mental.
bad, but it is of this
Entonces, lo
mental
que te da la
ignorance.
meditación
So what meditation gives
es
you
la comprensión
is the
de
understanding
que la soledad
that
es una ficción.
loneliness is
Por
fiction,
supuesto que hay que respetar a los que
because
se
of
sienten
course
solos
you need to
y
respect
ese
those who feel
sentimiento, pero ese
lonely, yes, because
sentimiento
that's a
es un
feeling,
sentimiento no
but that
fiable.
feeling, you cannot rely on
Aunque
that
sea muy
feeling. It's
crudo
not
decirlo así, no
trustworthy,
es
even
fiable
though it
porque hoy se
sounds
sienten
bad, but
solos y mañana
because
se
right
sienten
now they feel
acompañados.
alone and
Es decir, que no
tomorrow
es
they might
sólido,
feel
no es
with
estable.
companionship. So that's
Los
what I mean,
sentimientos
is that it is not
son
stable.
subproductos
So
de los
feelings are just a
pensamientos.
subproduct
Eso
of the
significa que si
thoughts.
tú
So
piensas de
that
una
means
manera
that if
tendrás
you
unos
think in
sentimientos, si
one
piensas
way,
de
you will
otra
have a
tendrás
feeling, and
otros,
if you
¿no?
think on another way,
Por
you will
tanto,
have another
hemos
feeling.
de tener
So that's why,
el
therefore,
pensamiento
then
correcto para
we
tener
need
los
to have the
sentimientos
correct
adecuados
thought so we can have the
ante la
better
realidad.
feelings
Y el sentimiento de la
towards reality.
soledad
And that
es un sentimiento
sense,
equivocado,
that
porque
feeling of loneliness
realmente
is a mistaken feeling,
somos uno,
because in reality we are one.
estamos unidos, somos
We
como
are
ese
together,
cuerpo
we are
que
united,
se
we are
ayuda
that whole
mutuamente
body
unos a
that
otros,
helps each other,
unos miembros a otros, unos
one member
órganos a
to
otros,
another,
porque
help
es el
the
mismo
other,
cuerpo, ¿no?
because it's the
Y ese
same
es el
body.
origen
And
de la
that's the
verdadera
origin.
compasión, que era
That's
tu
the origin
pregunta, ¿no?
of the
Es decir,
truth, the compassion.
la compasión
Answering your
es la
question.
consecuencia
Compassion
natural
is the natural
del
consequence
descubrimiento
of
de la unidad
that
o de la
discovery of
identidad.
unity, of that, or of that identity.
No es tanto que
It
tengamos
is
que
not, it is not
esforzarnos
that
en
we
ser
need
buenos, en ser
to become
compasivos con los
better or
demás,
to be
sino que
compassionate with the
tenemos
others.
que
No,
simplemente
we
descubrir
need to
que
discover.
somos uno.
We need to discover
Entonces,
that we
no
are
es una
one.
cuestión
It is not a matter of
que no tengamos, nosotros
it is
somos
not a
eso,
matter that we don't
somos
have. No,
compasivos
we are
por
that. We are
esencia,
compassive
pero
in our
existencialmente,
true nature.
evidentemente,
But
pues no, estamos
existentially, evidently,
perdidos,
of course
estamos
not. We are
embebidos en lo
lost.
nuestro,
We're just
prescindimos
embedded
de
in
los otros,
ourselves. No, we
¿no?
depend on the others.
Y
And
lo
so
maravilloso del camino espiritual
the most wonderful
es
thing
que
about this spiritual path
no es un
is
camino
that
que pida esfuerzo,
this is
pero
not a
sí
path
entrega,
that asks you to
que es
give
muy
an effort,
distinto, porque
but
el
you need
esfuerzo
to
es
give
un
in
acto de
into
la
that,
voluntad
because an effort
y
is
la
an action
entrega
from
es
the
un
will,
acto de amor.
and to give in is
O sea, esto
an act of
funciona
love.
si hay amor,
So this works if there
si
is
no, no
love.
funciona.
If there
Así que
is
yo
no
lo que
love, it
descubrí es algo
doesn't
muy,
work.
muy
So what I
sencillo.
have found is that it is very
Muy sencillo,
simple.
pero me ha costado
It is
40
very
años
simple, but it
descubrirlo,
has
¿no?
taken me
Y es
40
que
years to
esto
discover.
del
And
silencio,
this
la
is
meditación, la
that
vida
this
espiritual,
silence
solo
and
funciona
meditation and
si
spiritual path only
realmente
works if you
te
truly
entregas, si realmente
give
es
into it,
tu
give into
objetivo.
that. If
Si
that
tú
is
tienes
your
el foco
truly
puesto ahí.
objective, if you
Si tienes
have
el foco en muchos
your
sitios,
focus
pues
on that,
funciona
or if
muy regular
you
o
have
casi nada.
several focus, then it won't work.
You talked about Teresa of Avila. And Teresa of Avila said the journey is not easy. She spoke, and John of the Cross spoke of the dark night of the soul. And that there are times when silence, meditation, prayer seems very dry, very empty. Could you speak to why the dark night of the soul is important in the journey?
Sí. Voy a encender la luz porque estoy aquí muy oscuro. Quizás
Yes, let
demasiada
me
luz.
just
¿Me veis
turn on
bien,
the
no?
light.
Sí.
Can you see me
You
now?
are an enlightened being.
Hablando de la noche oscura, es lo más apropiado encender la luz.
Yes, so being the most appropriate, speaking about the darkest night of the soul, this is appropriate to do so. to turn on the light. So 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote another book, which is entitled The Biography of Light, which is the counterpart of this Biography of Silence, which is not an essay of meditation itself, but is an essay about the word, about the readings. And in that book, I was based on the light, because the shadow is a light that doesn't know exactly what is it about. Or what I say also there is that the light, it's an enlightened shadow.
Quiero decir que
and what do I mean by that?
Ingenuos, ¿no?
We cannot be naive thinking that spiritual path is only light. No, because human beings, it's not only light. Human beings is a mystery of light and darkness. So what happens here is that light and darkness doesn't have the same value or doesn't have the same rank or hierarchy. So light is what we are in depth and in a more genuine way, or in a more original way. But that light is covered by this shadow path that we need to follow, that we need to get there, that we need to cross to get into the light. So this awareness map that my master from Hungary, this is a book that he wrote. It is Contemplation Exercises, and he says that human beings, that we are just a light, and that we are just a product of God, and we were just released from heaven, and that means that in a way we just landed in a shadow path, and as this shadow path is really cruel and it's really disappointed, so we have just covered it with a lining, and that on a regular basis we just live from the outside, from this lining. So if we meditate, we will break this lining so we can cross that darkness, or we can cross that shadow path, so we can reach the light. So in a way, just to make it in a more familiar way, we can say that this package is our protection mechanisms, and the black night is the awareness, no? In a way, we need to see it face to face so we can reach that identity. So I think that yes, I think that every spiritual path gives and includes a dark night. Of course, I have lived my difficult moments and very difficult moments, but also I do believe that we should not mythify this shadow or this dark night, because that's the problem. The problem is not the shadow itself, but the things that we fall in love with this, we just attach to it. So we just become these dark bodies, and we don't realize that clouds go by, but the sky remains. So the darkness will dissipate, but then light remains. So we are just son of the lights, but not of the darkness.
Yes. And our friend Lynn has just said, if anybody has questions, please post them in the chat box. And I love Thomas Aquinas. You may recall at the end of his life, he had an experience, a profound experience of silence, in which he experienced the presence of God. And he said that all the volumes that he had written was just so much dust. And he spoke of an infused theology, that God infuses theology into the mind and the heart. Could you speak about that sense of the infused Word of God?
No sé si he entendido del todo la pregunta.
I don't know if I understood properly your question, says Pablo.
Felipe,
if you can just repeat it.
En castellano para entenderla mejor. Hasta ahora no había tenido ningún problema.
So far, I haven't had any problem understanding you.
O igual está la traducción
Or
aquí escrita,
maybe
yo no me he enterado todavía.
Gard, what was the question? I can try to translate it.
That often we think of theology as being words on a page. But Thomas Aquinas at the end of his life said, no, it's not words on a page. It's words on the soul that God has provided.
Muchas veces creemos que la teología son solamente palabras escritas en un
many
papel,
times we believe that the
pero
theology
Tomás
are
Aquino
just
dijo que
words
no
in a
son palabras
paper, but
escritas
Thomas said
en
that
el
they are not,
papel, sino
not
en
these
el
words
alma.
in the written paper, but in the soul.
Sí, ahora esta segunda vez que lo has preguntado, lo has
So now
formulado,
that
ya sí que lo
you
había entendido, ¿no? Muchas gracias.
repeated, I
Sí, no hay
understood
problema.
it.
Sí, pues claro, las personas en general tienen una idea demasiado literal
People in
de
general,
lo que
they
es
have
la
like a
palabra
literal
de
idea
Dios.
of what the word represents,
Entonces,
of God's word
asocian la palabra
represents.
de Dios
They link the
prácticamente
word,
nada
they
más
link
a la Sagrada
God's
Escritura, a la
word
palabra
only
escrita,
to the
o como
gospel,
máximo a la
to the written
tradición,
word,
¿no? Es
or to
decir,
the
la palabra
tradition,
predicada.
or the predicted
Pero cuando se
word.
dice en la Sagrada
But
Escritura,
whenever
Dios
it's
crea por
given
medio
in
de la
the,
palabra, quiere
when
decir
there
que
is
Dios está
there
creando con la
through the
fuerza del
word,
Espíritu. Entonces,
it
la
is says
palabra
that it is
no es
through
solamente
the
lo
word of the
literal,
Spirit, but it is not the
verbal,
literal word itself, what it means. No, it is
o
not that.
el léxico,
It is
¿no?
not only that. It is
Sino
not the
que
word
es la
itself,
fuerza del
but
Espíritu,
it
¿no?
is the strength of the Spirit.
Y por tanto, no es algo que se
So
reduzca
therefore,
al papel,
this is not
¿no?
something that it is
Y,
only embedded in the
o a la
written
voz,
paper or to the
a
voice
la cuestión
itself,
sonora, ¿no?
to
Sino
the
que
sound,
efectivamente
but
toca el alma, ¿no? Que es lo que
it
me
reaches
estás
the
preguntando,
soul,
¿no?
and this is what you're
Cuando
asking
hacemos
me.
oración o hacemos
When we
meditación,
pray, when we meditate,
tú no escuchas, o al menos yo no escucho
you
una
do
palabra
not
como la
listen
que ahora
to a
estamos
specific
escuchando
word,
en
to the
nuestra
words
conversación.
that we're just
Yo no
listening
escucho
to
ese
what
tipo de
we're
palabras.
speaking. I don't
Yo
listen to that
escucho,
type of word. What I listen
experimento,
or what I experience
digamos, mociones
is
interiores,
several
que
inner
evidentemente eso es lo que
emotions,
llamamos la
which is
palabra,
what we
¿no? Eso
call
es,
the
digamos, el
word.
mensaje, la
That's
voz
the
de
message
Dios.
that we receive. That's the voice of God.
De tal manera
So, in a
en
way,
definitiva, hablamos y escribimos
we speak
para
and we
despertar
write
las
just
palabras
to
del alma,
awaken those words of the soul,
para crear esa complicidad,
to create
¿no? Con
that
los lectores
complexity,
o con los oyentes,
either with the
y
readers
generar
or with the
una
listeners,
comunidad
to create a
espiritual que
community,
está
to
unida
create a
por esas
spiritual
palabras
community that it is
compartidas.
together, that
Yo
is united through
suelo
these
decir
shared
que
words.
las palabras
I
cambian
usually
el
say
mundo,
that words change the
pero el
world,
silencio nos cambia a
but
nosotros.
silence changes us internally.
So I ask my students at the university, if God were to knock on your door this morning and say, do you have 20 minutes to spend with me? What would be your answer? And they all say, of course, I would spend 20 minutes with God. And yet, so few of us find the time to make the discipline of meditation a part of our daily life. Could you speak to why every day it's important to have meditation as part of the fabric of our life?
O sea, lo primero es entender por qué es
The
tan
first thing
difícil
is that
para
we
la
need to
mayoría de las
understand why
personas
is it very difficult for most of the people
practicar
to
a diario.
practice meditation on a daily basis.
Evidentemente, un hábito cuesta
Evidently,
crearlo, ¿no?
a habit is really
Hay hábitos que
difficult to
cuestan
create it,
más que
even though,
otros, ¿no?
well, there are several
Por
habits
ejemplo,
that
este.
take longer.
O sea, esto de la
But
meditación
basically,
a
this one,
muchas personas les
meditation
cuesta
for many
mucho
people, it's really
integrarlo.
difficult to integrate
Entonces,
it
hay
as
que
a
entender
habit
qué es
in
lo
our
que
life.
cuesta,
So we need to
qué es
understand
lo que
what
cuesta,
is
¿no?
it that
Y
it's
lo que
beyond
cuesta,
that. What does
yo
it
lo
take?
resumo en
Why?
dos
Why does it
cosas.
take long? And I can summarize it
Cuesta
in two, because it is
no el
difficult for
silencio,
us. No,
sino
it is not difficult, the
nos costamos
silence itself,
nosotros
but it
mismos.
is
Es decir,
difficult for
cuando
us.
alguien
It
dice,
is our own.
no me gusta la meditación, o no me gusta
When
la
someone
soledad, o no
says,
me
I
gusta
don't
el
like
silencio,
meditation, or I
lo que
don't
está
like silence,
diciendo,
or I
aunque
don't
no
like
lo
to be
sepa,
alone,
es
whatever
no
that
me
they
gusto
are
yo,
saying is that they don't like themselves.
porque no me
What
soporto,
they are
no puedo
saying
estar
behind
conmigo
that is
mismo.
that they cannot be
Entonces,
alone with
esto es lo primero.
themselves. So that's
Esto es
the
lo
first
primero,
thing that we
es lo
need to
fundamental.
realize. And that's
Y lo
basic.
segundo
And the second one
es que ¿por qué no
is
te gustas o por qué no
why
lo
do you like,
soportas?
why you don't like yourself, or why you cannot stand
Porque
yourself
el
alone?
silencio
Because in that
y la
sense,
meditación es un espacio y
silence
un
and
tiempo
meditation is a
no
space and a
productivo,
time that it is a non-productive
sino
time and
gratuito.
space, but it is just a free
Es
space.
decir, que realmente
So
eso
that means
no sirve para nada
that
de manera
it will
inmediata.
be considered
O
useless
sea,
in an
que si tú,
immediate
no sé, te
way,
pones
for
a
example,
cocinar, o te
no?
pones a limpiar,
Because
o
if
te
you
pones
start
a
cooking, if you
leer, o te
start
pones a
cleaning, if you
conversar,
start reading,
pues
if you
ahí
start
el
talking or
ego que está
whatever,
satisfecho
the self
y
is
hace
being
cosas,
satisfied
¿no? Y se
because it's
siente
doing something,
autoafirmado, ¿no?
and it feels
Pero en el
also
silencio no encuentras
feels
una
this
utilidad,
reaffirmation. But in this
¿no?
silence,
Y esto es
the
importante
self doesn't
porque yo
find
creo que
any
todos
utility.
nosotros,
It feels
normales,
useless.
buenos, estamos
And some of
enfermos de la
us,
presión del
we are
rendimiento.
sick about the
Es
stress
decir,
of
que se nos ha
performance.
enseñado que somos en
We've
la
been
medida en que producimos.
taught that
Y en cambio,
the
claro,
more
la
that we
meditación
produce, no,
no produce
we
nada.
have better results. And
Es
in
el
this sense,
ser puro,
meditation
es una escuela del
can
ser.
say that this is just a
Y por
school
eso
of
cuesta,
being,
¿no? Porque no hemos
and
sido
that's
entrenados
why
y
it
por eso
takes
vivimos
more,
desde los
because we haven't
sucedáneos
received that
del
training,
ser,
and that's
como
why,
son el
because
poder,
we've been
el
lived
tener y el
through
aparentar.
these
¿No? La
years of
codicia, la ambición
living, of
y la
being
vanidad.
greed or
¿No?
having
Son
and vanity and all
los cánceres, ¿no?
those
Sí,
cancers that
que nos
are around the
corroen y
world
que
and
nos
that
destruyen, ¿no?
make us
Entonces,
being corrupted and destroying us.
la
So
pregunta era ¿por qué es tan
the question
difícil,
is
¿no?
why?
¿Y qué
Why is
podemos
it so
hacer
difficult, and what can we do?
para que sea menos difícil, ¿no?
What can we do to
Pues
make it less difficult?
yo creo que podemos hacer dos cosas.
I think that
La
we
primera
can do
es
two things. The first one would be
fiarse de una propuesta.
to trust
Por ejemplo,
one
Thomas
proposal.
Keating.
For example,
Thomas
Thomas de
Keating
Aquino.
tiene
Thomas
una
Keating
propuesta
has a
maravillosa
proposal, a
que se llama
wonderful
oración
proposal,
centrante
that it's this
y
prayer.
pues uno dice, pues voy a seguir a este
And then
maestro,
you can say, well, I will follow this
¿no?
master.
Y fiarse, yo suelo decir a la
And
gente
you
que
need
habla
to trust
conmigo,
them, no?
fíjate 3
Whoever
meses,
speaks with me, I told them,
100
trust them
días.
for 3 months.
Si después de
That
100
is
días esto no te
100
funciona,
days. And if
cambia
after
de maestro.
100 days
O
that
cambia de
doesn't work
escuela,
for
o
you,
cambia de
change
libro,
the
o cambia
school or
de
change the
grupo,
book or
¿no?
change the
Pero tienes que
master.
darle un margen
But you need to
para ver
give
que
a
funciona,
margin
¿no?
just to see that it works for
Pues
you.
primero eso.
So the
O sea,
first would be that.
Y segundo, además de
And then
un guía,
secondly,
que no
besides
hace
having
falta
a
que
guy, a
sea, no
master,
sé, Ramana Maharshi, que sea,
it doesn't need to be
no sé,
Ramana Maharishi, no,
iluminado
or an enlightened master,
increíble, ¿no? Sino que basta que sea una
but
persona, bueno, pues
just
que esté en el camino desde hace
a
tiempo y
person that
que vaya por
follows
delante
that
y que te
path
pueda
and that
acompañar y enseñar, ¿no?
can teach you and
Y
can
también,
guide you.
además de un
So
guía,
besides
el
that,
mentor,
besides having a mentor or
es importante el
master,
grupo,
the group is
nosotros,
also important,
¿no? Yo suelo
the
decir
others.
también que si uno va al
So I
desierto
usually say that if
solo,
you go to the
lo más
desert
probable es que se
by
pierda
yourself,
o se muera de frío
you
o por
will
las noches o de
lose
sed.
yourself or you will
Pero si
die
vas en caravana,
from cold.
pues
But
es
if you
probable que
go
llegues
in
al
a group,
oasis
you
antes o
might
después.
reach the oasis.
Entonces, el
So
grupo
that's why it's
refuerza
important to have
mucho
a
una
group, because the
práctica
group also reinforces the
que
practice,
es difícil, que
which
es
is
ardua. En el
difficult.
fondo es sencilla, pero no fácil.
So in its sense, it's easy, but
So
it is
we're
difficult
coming
also.
to the close, and we can't close without talking about what the treasures are. And I'm an accountant by trade, and many of my clients were very, very wealthy, but very, very miserable people. And the treasures I can see in you, Pablo, is joy and peace and a loving heart. So could you speak about how you have experienced those treasures along the path?
En realidad, mi camino ha sido
Well, in
bastante
reality,
largo.
my path has been
Y
really
no
long.
sé si me veis bien, porque de pronto ha desaparecido la imagen.
And
Ahora,
I don't know if you
¿me
can
veis
see
bien
me.
todos?
Can you see me? Because sometimes
ningún problema.
my image is not good.
Vale, es que de pronto me ha desaparecido la imagen. No sé.
Sometimes the images
Digo que mi camino
just
ha sido
disappear. But well,
más bien
what I
largo,
was telling
en el
you is
sentido
that
de que
my
yo
path
empecé muy
has been
joven,
long in the sense that I
no sé,
started
con
really
18
young.
años, 19,
Maybe I was
y
18,
tengo ya
19 years
60, ¿no? O
old,
sea,
and right
he
now
estado
I'm about
40 años y me ha
close to
costado
60.
mucho
So it's been
tiempo
40 years. It
llegar
has
a estos
taken me a
frutos
long path
de la
to
paz,
reach these
de la
outputs
alegría
of
y
peace,
del amor, que son los
joy, and
principales,
love,
¿no?
which are the main
Ahora
ones.
sí que puedo decir,
So
con
what I can
modestia,
tell you,
evidentemente,
modestly
que sí que
speaking, is
vivo estos frutos.
that I
¿no?
truly
Es decir,
live these treasures. I
y-
truly live these results.
Es decir, que en general me siento muy contento,
In general,
no tengo
I truly feel
frustraciones
happy. I don't have any worries.
y realmente estoy preparado.
And I'm
Es decir, que
really
realmente
prepared.
si me dijeran que mañana
If
me
someone
toca
tells me tomorrow that
pues morir,
I would
creo
die,
que dormiría
I
esta noche como un
believe
niño.
that this night I
Es decir, que
would
no
sleep
tengo
as
que
a
llamar a la
child.
telefónica para
So
despedirme, pero eso sería todo.
maybe just a
Es decir,
final
no
call
tengo
to say
cuentas
goodbye,
pendientes,
but
creo.
I don't have any pending
Eso no
issues.
significa que
So that means
me haya equivocado muchísimo
that doesn't mean that I haven't made
y,
mistakes.
y lo más doloroso, que he sido causa de sufrimiento para otras
And
personas.
also the
sin saberlo.
most painful
Yo he sido
that
causa de sufrimiento.
being not aware of that, I
Y
have hurt some people
yo no diría
in
que
the
lo
way.
tengo todo
But I
purificado,
won't say that everything
ni
is
mucho menos,
pure
pero
in
sí
me or
he hecho un
healed,
camino de
but
purificación muy
that
grande.
I have
Esto sí.
gone through this purification process.
Yo, además de esto, que son los frutos principales, paz, amor y alegría,
Besides these two
yo
elements that
suelo
are
hablar
joy and love,
del fruto de la
I
claridad,
also tend to speak about the
del fruto
clarity
del
of the
coraje
result
y
and
del
also
fruto de la
about
fecundidad.
the
¿no? O sea, la claridad es
clarity
que normalmente estamos confusos
that on a regular basis we are
porque tenemos
confused
demasiadas cosas en la cabeza y en
because
el
we have so
corazón
many
y
things in
porque
the
no
heart
estamos en
and in
nuestro
the
centro.
head, and because we are not
Entonces,
in our
la
center.
meditación da claridad.
So meditation gives
Da
you
claridad.
clarity.
Justamente porque da claridad,
And that is why
da coraje.
because
Es
of
decir,
that
porque las cosas las ves
clarity,
claras,
that also gives you
actúas.
courage, because as you see
Tienes
things
la
in a clear
valentía
way, then you take
para
action. You have
decirlo
the
tú y luego
courage to act, to
para
say, to
actuar como
work,
crees que
to
tienes
act
que
as you
actuar.
should have to.
Entonces, esto significa que
So that
normalmente las
means
personas más
that on a regular
pusilánimes o
basis,
más
those
aparentemente
people
cobardes,
that
no,
are
no es una cuestión
cowards,
de
it's
temple
not a
o
matter
temperamento, sino más bien porque no tienen claridad y por eso
of their mood
se
or
son
their temperament.
dubitativos, ¿no? Y parecen que no
And
intervienen, que
sometimes
tienen
it might
miedo,
be that
pero es por falta de
they are
claridad, ¿no?
afraid, but that's
Y en
because they
cambio,
are not
si
clear. They don't have
realmente
clarity.
actúas y tienes
So if
coraje,
you act and you have this
el resultado
courage,
es la
the
fecundidad.
result then it's
¿no? Así a mí me gusta decir
being this productive. So
que
I like to say that
cuando un manzano
when
sabe
an apple
que es
tree
feliz cuando da
says that
manzanas
it's happy
buenas que la
when it
gente
gives
come y
good
disfruta,
apples that people
¿no?
eat and
Y
enjoy.
cuando una persona
And
puede saber que su vida es
when a
lograda,
person can know
pues
that they
cuando da
achieve
fruto,
anything in
o
life,
mejor dicho,
when give
él mismo es un
when they
fruto
give
para que
the
los demás lo
result, or
coman,
when
¿no?
he
Es
or she
decir,
represents
que
the fruit
realmente
to
estamos
be
llamados,
eaten.
al
So
menos desde
we're
una
called
perspectiva
to that,
cristiana,
at least
entendido
from this
así, a
Christian
ser Eucaristía,
tendency to
no solamente
follow the gospel,
a estar en paz,
and not only
sino
to
a ser
be
paz
at
para
peace, but
otros,
also to
¿no?
be peace for
Entonces es
others.
cuando, ese es el fruto más
So
hermoso,
that's the most
ese es el fruto
wonderful
más,
result that we
o sea,
can
cuando
turn into.
realmente,
So that's why
bueno, pues sientes que con toda modestia, con todos tus
that's when you
límites,
feel that
pero
even though with
puedes
all
ser
your
causa
limits,
de
you
alegría y
can
de
be
sentido y de fuerza para
cause
otras
of
personas.
joy and sense and
Y por eso
strength for
estamos
other
aquí
people.
hablando
And
de
that's
todo
why
esto.
the reason we are here.
Gracias, mi hermano en silencio.
Thank you so much,
We have
my
come to the
silence
end of our
brother.
time together, and I just am so grateful for your voice, because in this troubled world, your voice is needed. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I turn it over to our brother Felipe.
Ha sido un honor y un placer y me ha gustado
It's been an
mucho
honor
esta
and a
conversación
pleasure. I just like
porque fíjate que
enjoy a
tengo
lot
muchas
our
conversaciones de ese tipo, pero
conversation, because
esta ha
I
sido
have had many talks of
especial,
this,
no sé
but this
cómo
has been very
decirte,
special. I don't know how to tell you that. It's been
muy desde el
really
corazón, ¿no?
from the heart.
Y me ha tocado mi propio corazón, o
And
sea que
it
gracias
has
por
even touched my
tus
heart. So
preguntas y por
thank you
esta
for that. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for this
Muchas gracias,
conversation.
Pablo. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Char.
much, Pablo.
We're truly grateful to have this opportunity to listen to you, Pablo, and your book and all these different experiences. It really has touched all of our hearts as well, and we appreciate that so much. I just want to quickly share my screen to let people know about the different things that are happening right now with the charter. We have our course, Grief and Loss with Rick Hansen, that starts on February 12th for 4 weeks. We also have the Charter Sangha that happens every last Saturday of the month. This will be Saturday, February 24th. It's a time to meditate, to rest, to have some silence as well, and to commune with other people. Next month, we have our global read with David Gershon. And once again, God is going to be our facilitator. We're going to be talking with the book Social Change 2.0, a blueprint for reinventing our world. And then we also have the 40 Days Peace program that reminds us of all the different things that Martin Luther King Jr. Did and has taught us. And we're going to have a course called Compassion Training for Busy People with instructors Burrell Poe and Sarah Schrader. And last but not least, this is a lot of different things that are happening. But World Interfaith Harmony Week begins this week, tomorrow, February 1st until the 7th. And the Charter for Compassion has activities going on every day. Go to our website, charterforcompassion.org, into our events calendar. You can find out more about the different activities. Again, thank you everyone for joining us on the Zoom, on Facebook. Muchas gracias, Pablo, nuevamente por todo lo que pudiste conversar y compartir con nosotros. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. And for everybody else, thank you once again, and we will be seeing you in our next global read in February. Bye.
Bye-bye. Adios.
Adiós, adiós a todos.